Number 10, Tom Cruise. Brad Pitt and Tom Cruise may seem like they have a lot in common at first glance, but they couldn't be more at odds with each other. Yet, allegedly, they have been feuding for 25 years, and it all started in 1994's Interview with a Vampire. The hit horror movie where both actors had starring roles really ignited their resentment for one another, and even though the film was nominated for an Oscar and a Golden Globe upon its release, Brad said that he was miserable during the entire filming, and that Tom being there certainly didn't help. And when asked about his co-star in an interview, Brad did not bother to hold back his feelings at all. Quote, "He bugged me. There came a point during filming when I started really resenting him. He's North Pole, I'm South. He's always coming at you with a handshake, whereas I may bump into you. There was this underlying competition that got in the way of any real conversation." Fast forward to 2009, when both actors were starring in World War II dramas, Brad in the very successful Inglourious Basterds and Tom Cruise in Valkyrie, which was a critical flop. So much so that Brad even called Valkyrie a ridiculous movie, which goes to show you that the rivalry was still there. Number 9, Marion Cotillard. In 2016, Brad Pitt and Marion Cotillard were co-stars in a film called Allied, which is a Second World War romantic drama where Brad played Max, a handsome intelligence agent who has an affair with a French resistance fighter called Marianne. As good as the film might have been, it was certainly overshadowed by the rumors that plagued the set, in particular the closeness between Brad and his leading lady. In fact, a source close to Brad and Angelina at the time claimed that the actress was so jealous of Marion that she refused to meet with the French star after meeting her on the set of the film, telling the Daily Mail, quote, "Angelina completely ignored Marion on the set, and when Marion tried to talk to her, she just looked away. Marion was devastated. Here she is thinking she's going to meet this great UN ambassador, and instead Angelina refuses to speak to the woman because of her own jealousy." In fact, Angelina reportedly hired a private investigator to watch the two actors on set and scout out a possible affair. And although none of this was Marion's fault, it's unlikely that Brad, who's now dating again, would work with the French actress again, considering how much scandal it brought to his own marriage with Angelina. Number 8, Harrison Ford. Ford and Pitt both starred in 1997's The Devil's Own, which had reportedly faced endless problems during production. One of the biggest being that allegedly the two leads didn't get along. Conflict off the screen erupted when Pitt told Newsweek magazine that the film was, quote, "the most irresponsible bit of filmmaking, if you can call it that I've ever seen. I couldn't believe it." Reports surfaced that the two co-stars disagreed on which character should be at the center of the film, but the alleged feud between Ford and Pitt may have just been an argument over the script, as Larry Gordon, the producer of Devil's Own, came out saying, "I never saw two men not getting along. The discussions were over the script, and every movie is a work in progress." And even the Indiana Jones star himself didn't seem too upset by the comments, and even suggested that Brad simply went on a rant about the film and didn't realize that he was going to be quoted throwing it under the bus. But Ford made it clear that the only thing he didn't appreciate was the fact that people were asking more questions about the working relationship between the two actors rather than the film itself. Number 7, the judge issue. Like many celebrity couples, Pitt and Jolie opted to hire their own judge to increase their privacy in the divorce proceedings. But that became yet another point of contention for the former couple when Angelina fought for their judge to be disqualified from the case. She scored a major victory point in the divorce when the California Appeals Court agreed with her that Judge John W. Outerkirk didn't sufficiently disclose prior business relationships with Brad's attorneys and considered that a conflict of interest. Angelina was actually able to prove that the private judge that Brad had advocated for failed to disclose the cases that revealed a close relationship between the judge and her ex-husband's legal team. On their part, they were quick to deny any impropriety and pointed out that Judge Outerkirk actually officiated the couple's wedding, but the District Court of Appeal felt that it was an ethical breach and doubted the judge's ability to be impartial. So it was a bit of a shady move on the part of Brad's lawyers, but it might have just been all for nothing, as in 2020, Brad was granted joint custody of his children with a tentative ruling, much to Angelina's frustration. Number 6, Jennifer Aniston. The story that dominated the tabloids in the 2000s was just as scandalous as it was made out to be. Jen and Brad got married in 2000 in a lavish Malibu wedding, and things were perfect for the Hollywood it couple until they suddenly announced their divorce in 2005. What happened exactly? Well, long story short is that Brad met Angelina for the first time on the set of Mr. and Mrs. Smith, and Brad famously embarked on a jet-setting romance with her, despite the fact that he was still married to Jennifer. Although all parties denied that there was infidelity involved, Angelina couldn't help but gush to the papers about her new romance, and Jennifer told Vogue in 2008 that she had in fact read some of those interviews, and according to her, quote, "There was stuff printed in there that was definitely from a time when I was unaware that it was happening, and I felt those details were a little inappropriate to discuss. That stuff about how she couldn't wait to get to work every day. Not cool." Although they might be on good terms now, there's certainly a reason that Brad avoided having Jennifer in any of his films, and it probably has a lot to do with their past.
Number 5. Whitewashing. We certainly can't talk about red flags without bringing up the controversy surrounding Bullet Train. Brad has recently come under fire for allegedly whitewashing Japanese culture in his new blockbuster movie, which is an accusation that has his fans divided. The action-packed movie takes place in Japan on a high-speed train heading from Tokyo to Kyoto, which sounds great except for the fact that the majority of the cast involved are from Western countries and are not ethnically Japanese, leading many to accuse the filmmakers of insensitive casting choices. As Brad is the film's main lead, a lot of the criticism naturally falls on his shoulders, not to mention the fact that his character was originally written as Japanese in the source material. Not only are the majority of the film's main cast white, but the passengers of the Bullet Train are largely white as well, while the few background actors that do appear to be Japanese have no prominence in the story or speaking lines. The movie is based on a novel by the same name, written by author Katara Izaka, who has stood by the casting choices, but people are still upset regardless, because similar instances of whitewashing have occurred in recent movies, like Doctor Strange or Ghost in the Shell, so audiences are becoming increasingly frustrated with miscasting.
Number 4. Odilee Solidant. The famous French designer who was once a friend or acquaintance of Brad Pitt's ended up suing the couple in 2017 over the lighting in their Chateau Miraval home. The Guardian reported that Solidant claimed that the former couple simply stopped paying for her work that she did on 4 buildings of their 40-room mansion in France, while the designer insisted that she had no written contract specifically with Pitt or Jolie. She claims that he gave her the green light to do whatever she wanted in order to make their home beautiful. She took him literally at his word and hired architects, designers, lighting and acoustic specialists, and even an optical engineer to calculate the angle of the sun's rays on the chateau. The trouble started growing when Solidant noticed that Pitt and Jolie stopped paying for her estimated $29 million project after her billings reached approximately $6 million, and Pitt emailed her saying, "I don't know how things happen in France, but in the United States, friends don't attack friends. I've been nothing but a fan of your work. Do not attack. Let's finish the project and be proud of it." But by August of 2017, the former couple were ordered to pay her roughly $674,000, including about $71,000 for damaging her reputation.
Number 4. Dating Juliette Lewis. When they met on the set of Too Young to Die, Brad Pitt and Juliette Lewis were infatuated with each other and went on to date for 3 years. The film was quite a big break for both actors who were still climbing the Hollywood ladder at the time, but it was clearly a great romance, as years later Brad would go on to label the relationship as one of the greatest. So why was it a red flag? Well, he was 27 at the time and she was only 17. But it was the 90s, right? Well, no, actually, it was always a little bit creepy considering the fact that Juliette was still in high school at the time. When speaking about the whirlwind romance, she told Daily Mail in 2010, quote, "I was a teenager at the time. It was a lifetime away. I was in my high school years and it was a wonderful, loving relationship with a fun, smart guy. Then it was over and he went on to become incredibly famous." The duo certainly seemed in love as they were constantly hitting up red carpet events together, like the premiere for Thelma and Louise or The Last of the Mohicans. But the relationship was still a questionable one and falls into a morally grey area because of Juliette's age at the time.
Number 2. Mark Forster. The fact that World War Z managed to do okay at the box office is literally a miracle when you consider how massive the feud was between its star Brad Pitt and its director Mark Forster, making it one of the most infamously troubled shoots of any blockbuster from the last decade. Pitt starred as a UN worker, Jerry Lane, who searches the globe for information that can stop the zombie outbreak that is bringing down nations. But on the set was total chaos. Vulture reported that Pitt eventually stopped speaking altogether to Forster and that the director's notes for him were being given through a rotation of 3 different production members. That's right, they hated each other so much that they couldn't even speak to each other face to face. But the situation was further complicated by Pitt's status as a producer, giving him authority to challenge Forster's creative calls and causing the post-production process to be dragged out by their conflicting visions. And when the studio chiefs ordered reshoots of the the film, the apparent breakdown in the duo's relationship just made that progress extremely problematic. And coming in at number 1, Angelina Jolie. They were once Hollywood's glittering power couple, but for the last 5.5 years, Angelina Jolie and Brad Pitt have been very publicly airing out their dirty laundry in one of the messiest and most expensive divorce battles of all time. It was a shock to the world when the Tomb Raider actress Angelina Jolie filed for divorce from Pitt in September of 2016, just 2 years after they wed and 12 years into their partnership. Citing irreconcilable differences, Angelina requested sole physical custody of their 6 children, and the following month, she made a threat to take the children abroad despite a renegotiated custody agreement. The actress even took a swipe at him in Harper's Bazaar, saying, "I would love to live abroad and will do so as soon as my children are 18, but right now I'm having to base where their father chooses to live." In fact, it was recently reported that Brad is suing Angelina for allegedly secretly selling the couple's $116 million winery just to spite him. Although the once golden couple worked together on the iconic spy movie, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, it's unlikely these two will ever share the big screen ever again.
Number 10, the open relationship. After reports swirled that Brad Pitt was dating German model Nicole Putarowski, who looks a little bit like a younger version of Angelina, the world was set into a tailspin. But fans were a little bit confused when they found out that the model was already married to a much older man named Roland Mary, a German restaurateur who's 41 years her senior. Not only that, but Pitt allegedly met her through her husband. A source told the Daily Mail that Brad had been coming to Roland's restaurant for years, and he was then introduced to his wife Nicole, and she passed him her number. The two of them were eventually spotted in the south of France at Chateau Miraval, the estate he shared with Angelina. To make matters worse, the trip allegedly occurred near what would have been his and Jolie's wedding anniversary. But however scandalous the relationship was, it was always a little ambiguous as to whether there was any cheating involved, especially considering that Nicole is quite philosophical about the whole open marriage deal, and her husband seemed alright with the arrangement. So was the whole thing a little bit strange? Yes, but not necessarily wrong. Number 9, the foundation scandal. After Hurricane Katrina, Brad Pitt's Make It Right Foundation built 109 eye-catching and affordable homes in New Orleans for a community where people were displaced by the damage since 2005. But according to Pop Science, the vast majority of the homes are riddled with construction-related problems that have led to mold, termites, rotting wood, flooding, and although some of the structures are not yet a decade old, out of all the homes built, only 6 reportedly remain in reasonably good shape to this day. Most either have had partial repairs or have been completely renovated because of structural problems, with at least 6 houses totally boarded up and abandoned. As a result, in 2018, Brad and his foundation were hit with a class action lawsuit alleging that the homes they built were structurally unsound, with faulty foundations, electrical issues, and some with incorrectly installed gas meters, putting their homes at risk of gas leaks and explosions. The actor took credit for launching Make It Right in 2007, serving as its public face for years, but when his lawyers argued that he could not be sued over the developmental failings, a judge ruled that the movie star would remain a defendant because of his role as the organization's founder and chief fundraiser. Number 8, dissing Jennifer Aniston. Jen told Vanity Fair in 2005 that while she doubted her ex-husband was deliberately malicious, she explained that when it comes to Brad, there's a sensitivity chip that's missing. That might just be true when you look at his Parade magazine interview in 2011. The actor gave a rather unflattering description of his life and marriage with Jen. Brad felt that he wasn't living an interesting life, and in the 5 years that he was with the Friends star, he was trying to pretend the marriage was something it wasn't. Quote, "I started getting sick of myself sitting on the couch holding a joint hiding out. It started feeling pathetic. It became very clear to me that I was intent on trying to find a movie about an interesting life, but I wasn't living an interesting life myself. I think that my marriage had something to do with it." To make matters worse, when asked about life with Angelina in comparison, he admitted that he was finally a satisfied man. After receiving backlash for the interview that was basically insinuating that Jen was boring, Brad had to do some major damage control and went on to clarify his comments. Quote, "It grieves me that this was interpreted this way. The point I was trying to make is not that Jen was dull, but that I was becoming dull to myself and that I am responsible for." So at least he was able to clear that up because it probably hurt Jen quite a lot.
Number 7, Shia LaBeouf. Brad Pitt and Shia LaBeouf starred in the 2014 2014 war film Fury. While the movie received glowing reviews from both critics and fans, reportedly the two actors didn't get along when filming the gritty action film. Shia LaBeouf has a reputation in Hollywood as being extremely difficult to work with, and that was true with Fury as well. Reportedly, Shia was so committed to doing justice to the character of Boyd Swan that he had his front tooth removed and went for days without bathing or showering. Additionally, reports claim that Shia didn't believe that the makeup used for his facial scarring was realistic enough, so he actually cut his own face to make his war wounds look more realistic, and then during filming he would occasionally open the wounds to keep them looking more fresh and authentic. It's clear that he was determined to make an impression, but this allegedly rubbed Brad Pitt the wrong way, and according to Ranker, Pitt was disappointed by Shia's energy on set of their film and believed that the two of them have very different styles of working and it just wasn't mixing well on a personal level, as he allegedly felt uncomfortable seeing how much torture Shia would put himself through just to get results.
Number 6. Avoiding child support. In August of 2018, Angelina accused Brad of not paying any meaningful child support for their 6 children after the divorce. The actor countered that he had actually loaned her $8 million to buy a home, plus $1.3 million for bills. Angelina's attorneys slammed Brad in a statement to Us Weekly, citing the incident of September 2016 as the reason that Angelina and the children needed to move from the family home. Her rep further insinuated that he was charging her interest on a payment plan, and that she will of course honor that loan. Quote, "A loan is not, however, child support, and to represent it as such is misleading and inaccurate." The rep added that Angelina was requesting that Brad pay 50% of the kids' expenses, because she has had to shoulder the majority of those without his contribution for the past 2 years. Quote, "Child support is not optional in California. Typically, a father of means would pay these expenses voluntarily without the need for a request or a court order." The former couple's constant back and forth fighting over finances still hasn't ended. In fact, Brad is reportedly suing his ex-wife for allegedly secretly selling their $116 million winery without his knowledge.
Number 5. Mark Canton. Harrison Ford wasn't the only person that Brad Pitt bumped heads with during the filming of 1997's The Devil's Own. In fact, not long after the filming wrapped, news also surfaced that Pitt had wanted out of the film that he felt was doomed. But it was Mark Canton, the head of Columbia Pictures, that threatened him with a $63 million lawsuit if he went through with the walkout. So of course Pitt was kind of trapped, but he let his frustration out in that controversial interview in Newsweek magazine ahead of the film's release. Apart from calling the movie the most irresponsible bit of filmmaking, he said, quote, "I don't know why anyone would want to continue making that movie. We had nothing. The movie was the complete victim of this drowning studio head who said, 'I don't care, we're making it. I don't care what you have, shoot something.' If that wasn't enough, Pitt even said that they had no script, and it was a lot of pressure on himself and Harrison Ford just to make it all up as they went along. So clearly he resents Canton for putting him in that kind of situation in the first place."
Number 4. The lighting lawsuit. Odilee Solidant was once considered a friend of Brad and Angelina before they ran into some major issues. In fact, the famous French designer ended up suing the couple in 2017 over massive unpaid bills for the lighting in their Chateau Miraval home. Solidant claimed that the former couple simply stopped paying for her work that she did on 4 buildings of their 40-room mansion in France. While she did not have a written contract with the former couple per se, she claims that Brad gave her the green light to do whatever she wanted to make their home beautiful. Solidant took him at his word and racked up a $29 million bill in the process. She hired architects, designers, lighting and acoustic specialists, and even went to an optical engineer to calculate the angle of the sun's rays on the chateau. But she soon noticed that the former couple stopped paying for her project after her billings reached around $6 million. Before the lawyers got involved, Brad emailed her insisting that he was a fan of her work and that she should not legally attack them because they could figure it out amongst themselves. But it was no use, as in 2017 they were ordered to pay her roughly $674,000, including extra for damaging her reputation.
Number 3. Michael Madsen. In 1991, Pitt and Michael Madsen both appeared in the 90s feminist classic Thelma and Louise, and right away the two seemed to butt heads in a major way, and Madsen made no secret of how much he dislikes Pitt, but the beef between the actors goes way deeper than just trouble on the set of the film. In fact, they have have both worked with along. So clearly he resents Canton for putting him in that kind of situation in the first place.
Number 2, working with Weinstein. In a recent interview, Angelina Jolie opened up to The Guardian about her experience with the disgraced movie mogul Harvey Weinstein, speaking about his unwanted advances. Quote, "It was something I had to escape. I stayed away and warned people about him. I was asked to do The Aviator, but I said no because he was involved. I never associated or worked with him again. It was hard for me when Brad did." She went on to admit that it was very difficult for her when Brad continued to work with him, despite the fact that he tried to take advantage of her when she was 21. The couple fought over Brad's decision to take on Inglourious Basterds in 2009, which was distributed and co-financed by the Weinstein Company, and again in 2012 when he approached Weinstein to produce his film Killing Them Softly. Angelina makes it clear that Brad was well aware of what happened to her and went against her wishes anyway, which caused a great deal of pain. The actor made headlines for an interview with CNN, condemning Weinstein, and spoke about a time that he confronted him for preying on his then girlfriend Gwyneth Paltrow. So it's safe to assume he always knew about the Hollywood predator and was still happy to keep working with him. Number 1, accusations of domestic violence. Angelina Jolie and Brad Pitt's separation has been anything but a smooth process since it began, back in 2016. Their divorce seems to become messy and messier as years go by, especially after a disturbing allegation by Angelina last year, who filed court documents against her ex-husband that claimed that she was a victim of domestic violence. In fact, the court documents state that the actress and her children are willing to offer proof and authority in support of these allegations. She also agreed to provide testimony, along with the testimony of minor children. So where did this serious accusation come from? Well, in 2016, news broke that an altercation on a flight from Nice, France to Los Angeles had ultimately sparked the reason for the couple's divorce, as Brad was drinking heavily on the flight and allegedly physically hurt their oldest son, Maddox. He was subsequently investigated by the Los Angeles Department of Children and Family Services and cleared. Brad reportedly told the FBI that he had shouted at his son, but insisted that he did not attempt to physically harm him, his wife, or any of their other children. The actor has since also admitted that he was facing difficulties with alcohol at the time and attended Alcoholics Anonymous following the divorce. So it's possible that the incident was just a family argument that happened to escalate.